Parents forced me to join gym because their golden son was getting married and they wanted me to look presentable for his wedding. 1 year later they now claim that it blew up on their faces because apparently I look better than the groom, so now they want me to go back to my old looks. Growing up, I was always the fat kid. From as far back as I can remember, I was bigger than most of the other kids. In kindergarten, while my classmates were just starting to figure out what made them unique, my size had already singled me out, and as I got older, the weight I carried only grew more noticeable. By the time I was in high school, I was undeniably overweight, and my shape and size became a constant reminder that I was different. College wasn't much different. While some of my peers began to discover who they were or explore new sides of themselves, I remained wrapped in that same identity, overweight and sometimes struggling with it. Being the bigger kid wasn't easy. It opened me up to constant teasing, mockery, and hurtful comments from those who didn't know or didn't care to understand me. Growing up, I was bullied more than I like to remember. Classmates made fun of me relentlessly, their words chipped away at me, leaving deep insecurities and self-doubt that at times felt impossible to shake. They'd call me names and make rude jokes, and I would often be the punchline. I was always singled out, like I was somehow less deserving of kindness or friendship. I was constantly left out of games, parties, and gatherings. It felt like I was always on the outside, watching everyone else experience the normal ups and downs of childhood and adolescence from a distance I couldn't cross. These years of bullying affected how I saw myself and shaped how I responded to the world. I felt out of place with others, and in turn, I took refuge in books. I immersed myself in novels and stories that allowed me to escape the everyday struggles I faced. Books didn't judge me. They didn't look at me with ridicule. I became known as the nerd, and honestly, I didn't mind it nearly as much. Compared to me, my younger brother Brandon was completely the opposite. Just a year younger than me, he was born with this effortless charisma that drew people to him. While I was quieter and more reserved, Brandon thrived in social settings. He had a magnetic personality. He could walk into a room and, within moments, have everyone smiling, laughing, and completely enchanted by him. Brandon didn't just make friends easily, he seemed to have an innate ability to get people on his side, almost like he was the sun that people naturally orbited around, and despite our differences, I adored him. I took my role as his big brother seriously, feeling a fierce protectiveness whenever he needed it. When he started attending the same high school as me, I was thrilled. In the beginning, being Brandon's older brother made me feel proud, like I had a special place in his life. But as he got older, things started to change. As Brandon settled into high school and began to form his own identity, I began to see a shift in how he viewed me. He started noticing how different we really were and how differently we were both treated. Where I was the bookish, introverted type, he was vibrant and popular, someone who quickly found his place among the cool crowd. I watched as he became aware of my quirks and insecurities, the same things that made others see me as uncool. And once Brandon made new friends, he started to drift away from me. He would then try to actively ignore me or avoid me at school. That hurt. It really bothered me to see my own sibling view me as someone lesser. Nevertheless, I tried my best to accept his choice, to give him the space he seemed to want, even though it stung to feel like I was losing not just my brother but my friend. But then slowly, Brandon didn't just ignore me, he began joining in with others who made me feel like an outcast. If Brandon and I crossed paths in the hallways or during lunch, he and his friends would seize any opportunity to make me feel humiliated. They'd tease me in front of other students or, worse, pull stunts like trying to trip me as I walked by with my lunch tray, all for the sake of making everyone else laugh. It felt like I was losing him, not just to new friends, but to the same teasing and hurtful behavior I'd endured from others for so long. I was constantly on guard, trying to dodge not just my classmates' mockery but also the humiliation that now came from my own brother. It hurt deeply, especially because it came from someone I had always loved and looked up to. Whenever Brandon invited his friends over, they would try to gang up on me at home. They would burst into my room without knocking and then start laughing and pointing at my body. They'd hurl words like geek and fatty at me, like it was nothing. I would feel like a zoo animal, like I was their source of entertainment. Those moments when they invaded my space in my room made me feel small and isolated, like an outsider in my own home. Several times I did try to talk to my parents about it, hoping they'd understand how difficult it was for me to deal with Brandon's behavior. But whenever I brought it up, they would dismiss my concerns. They'd smile and justify his behavior, saying that this was how siblings bonded with each other, that Brandon was simply playing around with me. They assured me it was harmless, even going as far as to say that I should loosen up and not take everyone's taunts so seriously. They reminded me that I was older and therefore should have more patience, more resilience. So not only did I endure years of bullying from my classmates, including my own brother, but my concerns were also constantly dismissed by my parents. It made me feel alone, as though no one in my own family truly saw or understood how much it hurt. The only time I ever felt truly noticed by our parents was when it came to my grades. Academics had always come naturally to me, and I became used to securing top marks. In a way, it was the one area where I felt I was better than anyone else. It was also the only way I could make my parents proud, the one aspect of my life they seemed to genuinely care about. My parents loved to boast about my achievements to friends and relatives, painting me as the family scholar, as if my grades were somehow proof of their parenting success. But Brandon despised the comparisons. He wasn't an academic overachiever, nor did he want to be. But our parents' constant reminders of my achievements left him feeling resentful. They held my grades up as a standard, indirectly implying that he needed to achieve the same. I could always sense his frustration and anger, and I guess that is why he did what he did to me. Sometimes Brandon would try to sabotage my hard work just to get back at me, like he'd slip into my room in the middle of the night and steal my homework, sometimes right before a major assignment was due. I'd wake up the next morning only to find my carefully completed work missing. Panic would set in, and I'd frantically search through my books, papers, and folders, growing more desperate with each passing minute. And there he'd be, watching me from the doorway with a smirk, enjoying every second of my worry. To him, it was like a small victory, a way to knock me down a peg and remind me that I wasn't untouchable. He knew exactly how important my grades were to me, how much of my self-worth I tied up in them, and he took pleasure in disrupting that part of my life. I only found out about him stealing my assignments years later when he drunkenly confessed one night. Anyways, over time, my relationship with Brandon has softened, though we're far from close. You can say we've matured a bit, and some of the bitterness from our younger years has faded, but the deep bond that siblings often share never fully developed between us. After college, I moved out and began building a life in a new city with an exciting job and fresh opportunities, which meant I didn't see my family very often. As time went on, our interactions dwindled to a few calls or texts here and there. So last year, when I planned a visit home for the summer, I was genuinely looking forward to seeing everyone. It had been a while since we'd all gathered as a family, and I was eager to catch up and reconnect, but things didn't go quite as I had hoped. Our family lunch started pleasantly enough. Everyone seemed happy to see me, and for a while, it felt like old times. That changed, though, when Brandon suddenly announced his engagement. None of us had seen it coming, and at first, we thought maybe he was just joking. However, it became clear he was serious. He proudly held out his hand, showing off a stunning ring, and I couldn't help but admire how beautiful it looked. I felt a genuine happiness for him, proud that he'd finally found someone he loved and who loved him in return. Almost as soon as the congratulations died down, Brandon turned his attention to me and asked what I had been up to lately. I shared with him about my work and my life and how fulfilling things had been for me. Before I could even finish, he cut me off. I can't help but say this, he began smirking, but why are you still fat? I mean, if your life is really that great, shouldn't you have lost the weight by now? His words hit like a slap, dredging up old insecurities I thought I'd moved past. The room fell uncomfortably silent, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting to see how I would react. I just shrugged and tried to awkwardly laugh off his comment, but soon my parents joined in to bash me. They started to say how I was still fat and unmarried and how they were worried that I would never have any children. I felt so humiliated hearing them talk like that. My accomplishments, the job I was proud of, the life I built independently in another city, none of it seemed to matter. In their eyes, my weight and my lack of a family of my own were all they could focus on. As my parents and brother continued to discuss me, their remarks cut deeper than I expected. I spent years of my life finally growing into myself, building confidence and independence, but in those moments, I felt like the same insecure, awkward teenager I'd once been, desperate for my family's acceptance and approval. My parents then praised Brandon for getting engaged before me and how proud they were of him. Somehow, to them, I was the lesser child, successful perhaps, but still not quite enough. What was meant to be a joyful family reunion was quickly turning into a painful reminder of old wounds. At that moment, I felt more like an outsider than ever. Brandon didn't stop. He continued with his probing questions. So, when are you getting married? I mean, do you even have a girlfriend? He was clearly trying to mock me in front of everyone by talking about my love life. My parents quickly latched onto the topic, agreeing with Brandon that it was high time for me to find someone before it was too late. They pointed out how Brandon, being younger, was settling down before me while I, being the older one, was still wasting my life away on my job. I tried to push back, explaining that I loved my life the way it was, that I found fulfillment in my career and independence. My job paid me really well, and I was passionate about my work. And also, why did I have to find a partner or have a child? I am content just the way I am. But my words didn't seem to land. My dad especially seemed dismissive, giving me a pointed look as he taunted, "What's the point of earning all that money if you don't have anyone to come home to?" It was as though he couldn't fathom that happiness could exist outside of marriage or family. I felt the familiar feeling of being misunderstood, of my life choices being undervalued. This was my family, the people who were supposed to know me best, yet they seemed so focused on a version of happiness that wasn't my own. I had come home looking for connection and warmth, but what I found instead was judgment and taunts. Brandon then started to say how he expected me to at least have A+1 by the time his wedding rolled around. He told me that he didn't want people thinking his brother was some old, miserable man all alone while he was getting married. The comment stung. I just shook my head and told him that I would try. This is when my parents told me, matter-of-factly, that since Brandon's wedding was almost a year away, even if I couldn't manage to find a partner, I would at least try to lose weight and look more presentable for his wedding. They told me that maybe after I lost weight, it would be easier for me to attract a partner. Brandon agreed with my parents and told me that he wanted me to lose a few pounds at least. I sat there stunned and ashamed, feeling an ache I hadn't felt in years. How could my family talk to me this way? Did I really deserve their cruel words just because I was overweight? Was I supposed to have no feelings just because I was fat? I mean, I was a normal human being like them. I functioned normally as everyone else. I never saw my weight as a hindrance. So why were they? I even dated women who liked me just the way I was, yet my parents and Brandon were making it seem somehow my weight prevented me from finding love or from women approaching me when it wasn't even true. I wanted to defend myself, to tell them how hurtful their words were, but I felt frozen, unable to find the right words. Their words transported me back to high school, to the painful days when my weight made me a target. I hated how casually my family could bring up my biggest insecurities and not even care about how they made me feel, so I sat there holding in my pain and let the conversation eventually drift into something else. After that visit to my family, when I came back home, I threw myself into losing weight with a level of determination I hadn't known I had. It started as a way to prove something to my family, but over time it became more personal. I joined the gym, committed to a strict diet, and even hired a personal trainer. My trainer has been a lifesaver. Having gone through his own transformation from being overweight to reaching a healthy weight, he knew precisely how to guide me through a journey that was customized just for me. He designed a regimen tailored to my goals and supported me every step of the way, pushing me while also reminding me to give myself grace whenever I faltered. This time, it all seemed to click. I began to lose weight steadily, and as the pounds came off, I felt lighter, not just physically, but emotionally too. For the first time in my life, I started to feel and look different. My confidence shot up immediately. I used to think that losing weight wouldn't have that big of an impact, but it truly has. People view me differently now. Strangers are kinder, more attentive. Friends and colleagues see me with a new respect, and I can't deny that this feels like a kind of validation I'd never experienced before. It's as if I've suddenly become visible in a way I hadn't been. With my new body came a new sense of style. I changed my entire wardrobe, filling it with clothes I'd only dreamed of wearing. I even went for a complete hair makeover, trying a style that's bold and modern, one I would have been too shy to attempt in the past. Maybe it sounds extravagant, but I've never felt this good. I look in the mirror now and I hardly recognize the person staring back. It's like meeting a version of myself I never knew could exist. I'm proud of how far I've come, not just because of the weight loss, but because of the confidence and self-assurance that's come with it. Anyway, since Brandon's wedding is now 2 weeks away, my family has asked me to fly down and join them for lunch next week so they can discuss some final plans for his wedding. However, I don't feel like going home. I don't want my family to taunt me again and make me feel small, especially after I've finally started feeling good about myself for the first time in a long while. I don't even want to attend Brandon's wedding anymore after the way he and my parents have treated me, but I know that if I don't go, they'll be really upset and give me a long lecture about how family is family, and no matter how hurt I feel, I should be there for Brandon's big day. So I just want to know, Ida, if I don't attend my brother's wedding? Update 1. Wow. I'm overwhelmed by everybody's reaction. Some of your suggestions are honestly hilarious. I can't believe you're actually encouraging me to show up and mess with my brother now that I've lost all this weight. Growing up as the fat kid really messed with my self-esteem, especially when it came to how I saw myself. I struggled with self-doubt for a long time, always feeling like I wasn't good enough or didn't measure up to others. But reading all your comments has been a game changer. It's like you've helped me see myself in a whole new way, and I'm finally starting to feel more confident than I ever have. In fact, I'm now seriously thinking about showing up to my family's lunch and surprising everyone. They haven't seen me in so long, and since I'm not on social media, they have no idea about the weight I've lost. It would be interesting to see how they react. Update 2. Okay, Reddit, you all are not ready for this update. Grab your popcorn because this is about to get good. I decided to fly down to attend my family's lunch as I had updated before. I thought when they saw me they would be proud of the transformation I'd undergone since, after all, they had been the ones to actually push me toward it in the first place. Surely they'd be thrilled to see the positive changes in me and finally acknowledge the hard work I'd put in. The moment I stepped inside my parents' home, their jaws quite literally dropped. They stared at me stunned, almost as if they couldn't quite believe I was the same person. After a moment, they stammered, asking if it was really me. I gave them a warm hug, feeling pleased by their reaction. They complimented my appearance repeatedly, telling me how handsome I looked and how they couldn't believe it was really me. However, when Brandon arrived, things took a different turn. He didn't even notice me at first, ignoring me as if I were invisible, much like he'd done so many times in the past. But when I stood up to greet him, he did a double take, his eyes widening in surprise. He let out a strange, almost forced laugh before reaching over and pressing his fingers against my stomach, wide-eyed as though he needed proof that I had really lost all that weight. My parents laughed at his reaction and told him how they couldn't believe it either at first. As we settled into lunch, the conversation revolved around my transformation. Brandon and my parents peppered me with questions about how I'd managed it, marveling repeatedly at how different I looked. There was a sense of disbelief in their voices as if they'd never truly thought I could look any other way. Brandon especially kept repeating how he never expected me to change so drastically after losing weight. He remarked, "When I first asked you to lose weight, I never expected you to look this handsome. I didn't even know you had that jawline and those wrists beneath all that fat." I paused, trying to keep my composure, and gave him a smile before reminding him, "Brandon, I've always been handsome. Losing weight just enhanced my features." However, Brandon argued that it wasn't just that and there was something really different about me. He then had the nerve to ask, "Did you have some surgeries done on yourself? Because there's no way you look this good by yourself." I could feel my blood start to boil. The audacity to think I needed surgeries to look good when in fact I had worked so hard to look the way I did. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Wow, Brandon. It's amazing that you think that little of me. No surgery, just a lot of hard work and self-love, something you might want to try sometime." Brandon's face shifted from surprise to annoyance, but I didn't care. It felt good to finally speak up and put him in his place. Before he could respond, my parents jumped in, stepping in to smooth things over in their own way. "You shouldn't be offended," my mom said. "The three of us have just never seen you look this way before. Honestly, you look even more handsome now than Brandon does, and he's the one getting married." Brandon looked even more furious after Mom's comment. I simply ignored him and focused on my lunch, letting my brother stew in his anger. Then my mom chimed in, "You know, I was thinking maybe you should go back to your original hair color. I think you'd look even better with your natural shade. This blonde look makes you stand out too much. Maybe you should just go back to your old look." Brandon and my dad immediately agreed with her. My dad supported my mom, adding that Brandon was always the blonde son of the family and I was the brunette, so it would be a good idea for me to go back to my original hair color as it might make me look more like myself. Hearing their words, I was taken aback. I suddenly started to feel like the three of them were ganging up on me and trying to put me down. My hairstylist had been the one who changed my hair color to blonde because it suited my skin tone and face better. It had nothing to do with trying to stand out or overshadow my brother. I could understand why Brandon was jealous of me as I look good now, but I couldn't understand why my parents seemed so unhappy with me. It's like they wanted to change me back to who I was when they were the ones who wanted me to look more presentable for their darling son's upcoming wedding in the first place. But now that I did, they simply couldn't accept the person I had become, and instead of celebrating my growth, they were finding reasons to demean me. I finally asked my parents, "What's your problem? Why can't I be a blonde also? Does my brother own that color or something?" I paused, feeling frustrated. "No, he doesn't. I can be blonde or brunette. It's my choice. Why does it even matter to you so much?" I couldn't understand why they were so fixated on me going back to the way I used to be, as if my appearance needed to fit into who I was before. My mom scoffed at me and argued that I was knowingly trying to sabotage Brandon's upcoming wedding by trying to stand out with my appearance. Brandon chimed in as well, saying that with my weight loss, I was already going to stand out, so did I really need to take his hair color too? My dad, as usual, sided with them, telling me I was being difficult for no reason and that as Brandon's brother, I should be more understanding. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't about stealing anything, it was about me having the freedom to choose what made me feel good. But instead of supporting that, they were all focused on how it might make Brandon uncomfortable. "You know what? I'm done with this," I said, the words almost burning as they left my mouth. "The three of you are so caught up in your own negativity that you can't even accept that I've changed. Truth is, I've always been amazing just the way I am, but none of you ever saw it. Now, after I've lost weight, it's still not good enough for you. No matter what I do, it's never enough." I paused for a moment, letting the weight of my words sink in. They just stared at me, but it didn't matter, I was done holding back. "Since you all have so much to say about me, I think it's time I gave you some unsolicited advice, just like you love to give me." I turned to my mom first, feeling the words rise up inside me like a flood. "Mom, I really hate how loose the skin is around your eyes, and your lips, they droop on one side when you laugh. I can't help but notice all your crooked teeth, and honestly, it's just disgusting to me." "Dad," I began, my tone sharp, "you're bold. You really have no right to say anything about anyone's hair or their hair color. How are you going to criticize someone's looks when you can't even keep a full head of hair?" I saw his face tighten, but I wasn't done yet. Lastly, I turned to Brandon. "And you don't ever talk down to me again. Between the two of us, I've always been the better looking sibling, but now, with all the weight I've lost, you look even fatter than me. Just look at those chubby arms of yours." Brandon's face turned bright red in embarrassment, and he looked like he was about to burst out crying. I then lifted my glass, finished my drink in one go, and gave them a smirk before walking out, leaving them all shocked and speechless. I said what I had to say. I couldn't believe these words had actually left my mouth, but I didn't regret it one bit. After years of being the subject of their criticism, they deserved to be humiliated like that. After that lunch, I flew straight back home. I did not want to stay behind and attend Brandon's wedding. Since then, my phone has been blowing up with voicemails and messages from my parents and Brandon. They've been calling me rude and foul-mouthed for the way I talked to them and just left. Dad is even insisting that I should fly down and attend Brandon's wedding, saying it won't look good to his in-laws if I'm not there. Update 3. Hey. So I ended up skipping Brandon's wedding. Thanks to all of your ideas, instead of going back home to attend, I decided to treat myself to an impromptu staycation at a 5-star resort. It was honestly one of the best decisions I've made in a long time. I spent the weekend doing whatever made me happy. No drama, no pressure, just pure relaxation. I pampered myself with a spa day, binge-watched my favorite shows, and even explored some new spots in the city I've been wanting to check out. I've also gone ahead and blocked my family so they won't be able to contact me again. I'm tired of being bullied by them and just want to stay away from all the toxicity and drama. Right now, I'm focused on taking care of myself.